As a wealth mentor to thousands of people across the world, I am frequently asked questions about wealth creation. I think we can all acknowledge that money is a critical issue for most people, and most people don't know how to get a handle on their financial future. As somebody who has worked in the wealth management space and has had thousands of conversations around money, somebody who has gone from being broke to securing my own financial future, somebody who has managed hundreds of millions of dollars worth of assets personally for clients, I am well situated to understand why so many people fail when it comes to their financial future. In some of my previous videos, I do talk about a lot of the principles that relate to wealth, and I talk about the psychology of wealth. Today, I want to give you some perspective on a strategic way of thinking about wealth, which most people don't really understand. I've had mentees who've asked me what stock I should buy or what property I should buy. This is mostly a wrong question to start with. People don't realize that when it comes to the main contributors of your investment returns, that the main contributors of your investment returns are not when you buy, which is timing. It's not even the security selection. It's not which company stock you're buying. It's got predominantly to do with your asset allocation, and it's got to do with your behaviors, especially when the markets are volatile. I'll give you a prime example of a young man who is doing really well in his career and, with two young children. And he asked me the same question. He said, there's a stock that I'm thinking of buying, and should I buy it? And I advised him that that was the wrong way to start, that he really needs to start with a top-down approach, where the first question he really needs to ask himself is, what is he ultimately aiming for? Now, when it comes to aiming for wealth, the target has to be defined in terms of net worth, not in terms of income, not in terms of revenue if you're running a business or profits. It has to be defined in terms of net worth. So one of the first things we did was we got him to identify what kind of future net worth he would like to have based on the income requirements that he will have from his investments in the future when he decides to stop working. The second step was then we asked him to have a detailed assessment of his current investments and assets so that he could analyze the gap between where he is and where he wants to be. Third thing we did was we got him to identify how much time is he prepared to work and invest to hit his net worth target. So essentially we're talking about time frame. The fourth thing that we did was we took an assessment of his skill set to see if he already had some existing financial skills that could be capitalized upon. The fifth thing that we did was we understood his ability to be able to withstand risk. And we went through all the different types of risks that an investor would face. And we wanted to see how he would react if, the markets crashed or if the markets corrected. Because only when we understand a person's objective and we understand the amount of risk that they're comfortably prepared to take, only then you can kind of determine what is the right asset allocation, which is simply a fancy term for how your money or your investments should be divided across various asset classes. Main ones being, how much money are you going to put in cash? How much money are you going to have in bonds, corporate bonds, government bonds? And then within equities, how much money are you going to have in national equities, international equities? And then how much of that money in equities is going to have currency hedge or it's going to be unhedged? And whether then you want to use leverage as well, meaning that you want to borrow money to be able to invest in the markets, which again is only something that should be considered by people who have a high level of skill and a high level of risk profile. But again, what I'm trying to explain to you is that you can't just talk about what stock to buy, because that's not how you become wealthy. Research shows time and time again that over the long term, and really, you really have to think about this in the long term, because ultimate goal is not to get a massive return. The ultimate goal is to make sure that you have created enough of a net worth so you never run out of money. Now, in order to do that, the thing that you have to really get right is your asset allocation and behaviors, as I mentioned earlier. If your asset allocation is going to be the predominant contributor to your investment returns, followed by how you behave, meaning do you succumb to fear and greed, if those two are the main primary contributors of investment returns, then that's where you really want to be putting your focus rather than on individual equity selection or timing the markets. Unfortunately, majority of people do the opposite. They spend a lot of time trying to time their entry and exit out of the market, or they spend a lot of time researching which individual stocks they can buy to make a massive return. And in the process, they don't look at what net worth gap and target they have, and they don't look at the other things that I've just talked about. And once you've done the asset allocation, that's when you start to then pick the types of investments within that asset that you have selected, or within the range of assets that you have selected. You have to understand that there is no shortcuts to this. There's a lot of people who are going to try and take shortcuts. There's a lot of people who genuinely believe that they've got some sort of arbitrary advantage, that they can continually outperform the markets. A lot of people have this ability to overestimate their confidence and their skills. But unfortunately, there is no real way of being able to create wealth without going through a series of steps. And you really have to look at your own goals, and you have to really look at what you want at the end of the day. And the net worth goal should be determined by the kind of life and lifestyle that you really want in the future, rather than just comparing yourself with other people. But with this gentleman, we went through all of these steps, and then we were able to determine what kind of investment strategy would be suited for the type of person he is, for the amount of income that he has, for the goals that he has, for his ability to be able to tolerate risk, for the time frame that he has. And then based on that, we created the type of portfolio that he would then pretty much have in place and only monitor it once or twice a year, rather than regularly watching the markets. Anyone that wants to create wealth and is serious about it is going to have to go through this process. There are no shortcuts. They're going to have to consider all the things that I mentioned. One of the things that I learned many years ago is that in order to create wealth, the first thing you really got to do is you've got to identify all the things through which you can blow up your wealth. And you've really got to eliminate that first. In fact, before you even start the planning process, you've got to identify what are all the ways that people blow up their wealth. And you've got to then say, you know what, these are all the ways that people blow up their wealth. And I'm not going to do these things. I'm not going to speculate. I'm not going to try and time the market. I'm not going to watch the markets constantly. I'm not going to buy and sell constantly. I'm not going to just rely on my friends and neighbors or the media to understand what is going on. I want to stick to my own goals. Fundamentally, there are so many mistakes that people will make. And because of that, they end up losing so much opportunity, time, and money in the process. If you're watching my channel, I'm going to make the assumption that you're somebody who has the ability to think. You're a considered and a mature individual that wants to do things the right way. And that requires some thinking, it requires some planning, it requires some effort. If you're one of those people, then you're in the right place. Now, if you are wanting to learn this deeper, then I urge you to make an inquiry with our team by sending us an email on info@RonMalhotra.com, or you can reach out to us on any of our social channels, Instagram, Facebook, and send us a DM, and we will show you what we are doing to educate people on the principles and strategies and the psychology of wealth, so they are giving themselves and their families the best chance of being able to secure their financial future.